everybody. Hello, chat. How are we all doing tonight? It is fanfiction time. My goodness. It's been a little bit. Hello, Archa. Dorky, Ellipti, Duality, Lunar. Trashy, Sleepy. I saw you guys all. I was getting ready. How are we doing this very lovely night? Getting some work done, so I'll probably be lurking for this. Hell yes. Love that. We will be starting our Fall of Rome reading streams, which is very exciting. I'm doing pretty good. I've convinced a friend to watch with me. Oh, hello, Ellipti's friend. Lovely, glad you could pop by. I'm only 3 chapters away from the end of this fic, actually. Yay! So you get a fun little reread right away. White knuckles on my desk, I'm normal. I'm very excited for this one. Hi chat, hi Chris. Hi Primary. Got sick, Frozer. I don't have to leave the house, I can watch, but cons are sick. Aw, that sucks. I hope you feel better. So Fall of Rome is gonna be probably formatted a little bit differently compared to how we did Alternate Universe. So the way we did Alternate Universe is that we did a chapter stream, because the chapters are long. But Fall of Rome's chapters are shorter because the fic is just shorter in general. Hello, Sino! Hello, hello! So we're kind of gonna be playing it by ear. I don't know, we're probably gonna just read the equivalent that we would read for Alternate Universe. So we're gonna go for like maybe 2 hours, hour and a half, see how we feel. But we're just gonna be feeling it out. Purplish, thank you, hello, welcome to the stream. I'll probably have you in the background because I'm studying for finals, aware. Fun fact, Alternate Universe is almost as long as the Bible. Isn't the Bible like a little under 1 million words? Dave's Broken Diamond Club is probably longer than the Bible. Homestuck, is Homestuck longer than the Bible? I don't actually know. Bible word count. Oh my god, wait. It has less, holy shit. Yeah, it's like, Bible word count is 783k. I read that in like over a week. I can read that in a weekend if I really tried. That's not true. I could read that in a weekend, but I think if I speed ran reading Alternate Universe, I could probably do it in like a week. So, to be fair, okay, the Bible does not have the type of gushing intrigue and romance and mystery that Alternate Universe has. Honestly, I would say Alternate Universe is like an improved version. You get the same religious undertones, but in such a better way. Bible doesn't have gay people, so true. The only gay people in the Bible were, I mean, if you think about it, the little kiss Judas gives Jesus, kinda, you know, I'm doing the little limp wrist gesture right now. Jesus is pretty fucking gay. Yeah. I don't know, all he ever did was surround himself with, like, men. So if all you ever do were hang out with men who were, like, your devoted disciples, that's pretty fucking gay. Think about it. So, you know. And unlike Alternate Universe, which we kind of stopped doing it with Alternate Universe at the end, normally I would play music quite quietly, but I'm instead not going to play music, and we're just going to do standard, it's just going to be me, and hopefully we don't have too much background noise. I don't know how well my microphone noise cancels, but if you want to, you can play your own music and listen along. I'm going to be in silence, but I would usually listen to like a little bit of lo-fi, because that's feels right for me. But when we do it that way, you personally on your side can determine the volume and the volume mixing and I will just be speaking as loud as I can into a microphone. So that is the plan. So I will be turning off the music that we have as we get started, and yeah. So I think we're pretty much done with the intro, kind of bringing everything in. So let's hop right in. This is, oh, I don't want my. All right, we've got everything here. Desktop audio off, and we're gonna get started. So this is The Fall of Rome. It is by acrylicmist, and you can read the tags if you want. This fic is a bit darker. I will just, and we're gonna see that in the first chapter. We're gonna get a little bit hit in the face with it. So just be warned if that kind of thing puts you off. This is my warning now that we get into a little bit of territory that's a bit more, a little bit darker. So keep that in mind. But yes, this is a Dave Cat focused fic. It is 143k words, or a little bit, almost 144k. 27 chapters. It was completed actually not too long ago. And by not too long ago, I mean 3 years ago, but that's pretty recent considering most Homestuck fanfiction is from much longer than that. So, summary. Dave's not liking being relocated across the country to a new school under a new name that isn't his, hiding from his past. Meeting Karkat helps, even if it might get him killed. Chapter 1. 3 years ago. Afterward, the police pored over the tapes to try and see exactly how the events of that day had unfolded. They put together a timeline of everything that had happened. The graph they used wasn't long and was frighteningly spare, but it captured the middle and the end in perfect detail. It was the beginning that they missed. After all was said and done, and the lucky wounded taken to the hospital, here's what the police had to work with. At exactly 2:30 p.m., all of the school students were excused from normal class activities to attend a pep rally. It was senior night that Friday, and the whole school had gathered to wish the team well on the last home game before playoffs. The 7th graders were excused last. Upperclassmen were given priority seating in the small gym, so the youngest students were seated last so they could fill in the remaining empty seats in the back of the room. As the other students filed into their seats, no one noticed that Karkat Vantus was missing. After the police learned that he'd been excused to go to the bathroom just minutes before the bell rang for the pep rally, sometime in between that 5-minute span of time, the wolf got him. This was the part the police were missing. How had the man gotten into the school? Who were they? What was it that drove them to target a random student of all of 13 years old and overpower them, passing along a virus that was more of a curse? The cameras missed all of this. They never saw the initial attack. They never learned the man's face. When he appeared on the grainy black and white school video footage in the front of the gym, he wore a mask over his face to hide his features, just to prove beyond any doubt that this massacre had been premeditated. But the camera did catch him walking along the empty hallways of the school, the young, newly turned wolf at his side, straining towards the open door of the band room where the students were warming up for the pep rally. The man pulled the beast easily away from that door, leading the wolf carefully towards the gym, much like he was dragging an overeager cat by the scruff of its neck. Werewolves weren't dangerous to other werewolves. Even turned, they recognized their own, and the wolf made no move to harm the man that led it along, its nose sniffing the air, scenting human prey. When the strange pair reached the gym, the man simply opened the door, thrust the wolf inside, and closed it behind him. There's a moment right when the screaming begins, where the video shows the man wiping his gloved hands together, a peculiar job well done kind of movement. Inside the gym, the cameras were still rolling. There was no sound with this footage, but there was an abundance of other recordings as well. Students with cell phones videoing the start of the pep rally captured what it had sounded like. The first scream was cut off with a choke as the wolf locked its jaw around her neck. Then it was a chorus of chaos and screaming, blood everywhere, students and teachers trapped in a small room with a monster that's only thought was to kill. It was a bloodbath that would have gone on for a lot longer than the 33 students who had died, if not for the ones that had decided to fight back. The back of the corner of the gym by the locker rooms had been under construction, and loose bricks, cinder blocks, and building materials had been neatly piled in the corner. A younger student stole a nail hammer off of the tool rack and stood his ground as the wolf finished mauling a classmate and lunged for him next. The beast took the boy's left arm in its teeth, but the boy managed to strike the wolf in the skull with the blunt end of the stolen hammer and a few desperate, thunderous times, and with a whine the wolf let go of his arms, its eyes rolling as its skull cracked. With a spasm, the wolf dropped to the tiled, bloodied ground and lay still. And now it was time for the ending. With the werewolf down and out, the screaming students that had survived or been wounded managed to flee the gym just as the police arrived with guns drawn. The principal was there, panicked, scanning each of the downed bodies for his son as the police advanced on the fallen werewolf. Right as the police closed in on the young wolf, gave a shudder, muscles jerking, and turned back into a boy. Present day. Dave Strider was kind of hating this new school. He didn't know anybody here and was missing his friends back home. He would never have admitted it, but he felt lonely, even though it was only his first day. For the most part, he kept his head down during the first day of class. It was already halfway through the semester, and every teacher seemed unprepared for a sudden new student. He ended up sitting in the back a lot of the time, or right up in the front by the teacher's desk, where no one else had wanted to sit. And then he spotted Karkat. It was hard not to notice him. The name Karkat Vantis was infamous these days. Dave had known what the other teen had looked like long before the school board had handed him a picture of the local werewolf with strict instructions not to approach him for any reason. Karkat sat directly beside the teacher's desk in every class, his head down, shoulders hunched. At lunchtime, he vanished completely. The other students didn't bother him even to ask to borrow a pencil. There was a strict, unbroken bubble of space between Karkat and the rest of the school. The sight made Dave curious. Like most people, he had a solid grasp on what lycanthropy meant, and Karkat was the only werewolf Dave had ever seen in person. In history, Dave was forced to sit beside the guy in the only other seat available. Karkat didn't move when Dave sat down his bag. He didn't act like he noticed Dave at all. Dave took the opportunity to openly study him, ignoring the class lecture. Werewolves were vicious creatures, the bane of humanity, responsible for countless deaths across the country each year. But they were also rare as fuck, because not many of them survived for long with their affliction. Karkat was supposedly the youngest one ever recorded or something, and the only publicly out wolf in the nation. And Dave was naturally curious about something that might bite his head off sitting next to him in a classroom. Karkat looked fairly normal. Unruly black hair, olive skin without a single blemish to it, and a face that looked carved out of stone. Only his eyes were abnormal. They shone a bright, mutant red, like blood on fresh snow, the mark of a werewolf. Dave kept his own eyes covered with his prescription glasses. He might have been human, but people still got buggy over red eyes, so he tried to keep them covered up as best he could. History was the last period of the day, and the teachers religiously dismissed them from work 15 minutes early, so right at the end of the day, there were only a few minutes for the class to socialize before the bell rang. Dave leaned over to Karkat. "Hey." The guy barely glanced at him. "What?" Dave shrugged. "Nothing," he said back. "I'm new here. I was just saying hi." "Great," Karkat answered, not really sounding interested as he dug a book out of his backpack and cracked it open on his desk. Dave peeked at the title. He didn't recognize it, but it seemed kinda chick flicky, romance, or some other mushy shit, probably. He watched silently as Karkat underlined a few words and began to scribble out notes to himself in the margins. Dave didn't try to read the small, cramped handwriting. "What are you writing?" Karkat glanced at him again in mute surprise, like he was annoyed to find Dave talking to him. "It's none of your business." The coldness in his voice didn't bother Dave. "I think that defacing a library book is everyone's business," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Actually, who pays for those things? The school? The taxpayers? Obama? I take the destruction of public property very seriously, I'll have you know. Gotta protect those tax dollars so they go to good educational shit like books and not coke and hookers for the school board." Karkat closed the book with a snap, his voice thin. "It's my own book," he defended himself. and my dad works for the school board, so drop it." "Ah, Daddy's on the school board," Dave nodded, his fingers fidgeting with a pen as he rapidly tapped it against his desk, needing to make noise as he asked the question that had been bothering him all day. "Is that why you're allowed to be here? 'Cause your dad?" Every other student talking shut up as Karkat stared at him, incredulous. For a moment, Dave was sure he'd said something taboo, spoken the unspeakable, let the wolf out of the bag. Karkat was still glaring at him, and his glare had sharpened, his red eyes nearly glowing. "Karkat!" the teacher snapped, sounding scared, and his eyes shot to her as he slumped down into his desk again, ignoring Dave. "I'm fine," the wolf spit out automatically, his gaze fixed on the floor. He didn't move or speak or do much of anything else but sit there and slowly shrink in on himself. Slowly, the rest of the class relaxed again as chatter resumed. The teacher shot Dave a sharp look that promised attention. That was when the guilt hit Dave. His pen stopped tapping on the desktop as his hand fell still. Shit. He poked the sleeping bear only to have it turn and bite itself. He wasn't sure what to feel, but watching Karkat hunch lower and lower in his chair did funny things to Dave's chest. Maybe it was because Dave could recognize guilt when he saw it. He could see the emotions clearly written across the other teen's shoulders, like it was Karkat's fault for getting angry, for having a completely normal reaction to Dave's insensitive assholishness that should have gotten him punched in the face. Karkat hadn't even done anything, just stared back at Dave, and the entire classroom had held its fucking breath like they were watching a bomb diffuser guy about to cut the wrong wire and blow them all to hell. The bell rang, and several people in the room flinched at the sound, still on edge from Karkat doing absolutely fucking nothing. In a way, it made sense. Karkat was famous for having a body count to his name. Maybe it wasn't in Dave's best interest to prod at the murder werewolf. The teacher held him back after the class bell rang. Karkat was on his feet and out the door before anyone else could move, as Dave slunk over to the teacher's desk. She gave him a hard stare. "I thought," she said sternly, "that you had been made aware of Karkat's position at the school." "They might have mentioned it," Dave said lightly, unwilling to lie. He moved his backpack to his other shoulder, cagey. He wanted to get out of here. The less time he spent in a classroom, the better, and with the bell rung, he was already getting antsy to leave. "So you understand that he needs to be kept calm and unbothered at all time?" the teacher asked. Dave shrugged. "It's not how werewolves work, you know," he says boldly. "We're nowhere near a full moon." "Still, I thought he looked lonely," Dave interrupted, vying for the good guy angle to cut his half-assed intervention short. "I noticed that no one else here talks to him, and I thought I should try." The teacher held back her next words, carefully speaking. She didn't sound like she believed him. "Well then," she said, "I would try harder next time not to provoke him. He's been through enough without other students messing with him." Dave shrugged again. "You say so," he answered, uncooperative. He stood and made his way for the door. "And Dave," she called out to him sweetly, "you have detention." Dave couldn't hide the grin as he yanked open the door. "Not today, I don't," he said, and waved goodbye as he let the door close behind him. He was on track to maintain his record of bad behavior at this new school. One day and he already had detention. This was going to be very easy. The hallways were mostly empty now that the bell had rang. It was then that Dave began to notice the extra precautions that the school had implemented to better protect its students in case something bad happened. No one wanted a repeat of what happened at Karkat's old school. There was a camera on every corner. The windows were bulletproof and barred with iron, every classroom locked from the inside. There was always a police officer stationed up at the front office, armed with silver bullets. The school was a fortress. No wonder the system had decided it was the best, most well-protected place for Dave to go, even with a resident monster prowling the halls. Or maybe the police thought a werewolf on site might make Bro pause and reconsider his surely nefarious plans. Dave found his bus easily and climbed aboard. There, at the very back, was Karkat, still reading that trashy paperback from before. Dave swallowed a grin as he made his way to where Karkat was sitting. He wasn't stupid enough to sit beside the wolf. Dave chose the empty seat across the aisle, taking advantage of the bubble of empty space that constantly surrounded the other teen. Karkat's eyes flickered up as Dave plopped down, and he snapped his book up between them, clearly set on ignoring him. "Wait," Dave cautioned, raising hand. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to apologize." Karkat lowered the book just enough to glare mistrustfully at him. The bus jolted into movement below him, bouncing along the cracked pavement. "It's true," Dave said, placing his hand over his heart. He dropped his voice lower, leaning in. I can't fuck up and risk getting kicked out of this place, or the system will throw another bitch fit at me for violating protocol. Karkat lowered his book some more, looking interested despite himself. What system? Witsec, Dave clarified, whispering as he wagged his eyebrows. Karkat scoffed and turned away, disgusted. No, it's true, Dave said. Honest to God, I'm hiding out here for my fucking life. Why else would they place me in the most secure school in the fucking country? Karkat looked at him again, something uncertain in his eyes. You're shitting me, he said at last. No one fucking admits they're in witness protection on day fucking 1 to a complete stranger. No one can be that pants-shitting moronic. Dave shrugged again. He tended to do most of his emoting through shrugs. Shit was easier that way. And who would you fucking tell? Your dad? Dave asked, grinning. I bet he already knows. The system briefed them on my arrival before I set foot in the building. Karkat scowled at him, his eyebrows crinkling. See? Dave prompted. My secret's safe with you because you're a social outcast. I can say this because I'm also a social outcast. Karkat barked out a laugh. Dave, he said, you've been here for 1 day. You're not a social outcast. You're just new. Give it some time and you'll be sitting with the popular kids at lunch. Nope, Dave said, popping his lips on the P. He smiled again, this time something more even and open as he reminisced the good old days. I was loner at my old school, the delinquent. I'm betting that record won't change just because I hopped a few state lines and changed my name. They made you change your name? Karkat said, looking sad. So you believe me? Dave asked. Not even a little, Karkat said, bringing his book up again. You might just be a compulsive liar for all I know. You kind of look like one too. Shady drifter with a bad hair dye job. Excuse me. And douchey sunglasses. Dave frowned, still overly sensitive about his artificially darkened hair. The dye's to help hide my identity, he offered. I know it looks like shit against my complexion. Please don't remind me. It was either that or a shaved head, and I just fucking know I can't rock the bald look. Karkat's shoulders shook with withheld laugh. He was grinning like he was surprised with himself at the expression as he looked at Dave. Really? He asked. You're not shitting me, are you? Scout's honor, Dave swore. And those douche sunglasses? Karkat asked sarcastically. Couldn't you just wear tinted contacts or something like a normal person? Dave froze. Karkat noticed. What? Karkat asked defensively. Did I offend you? No, Dave said quickly. And if you did, I deserved it for what I said to you earlier. No, Karkat said at once. That wasn't your fault. I shouldn't have gotten angry. Dude, no, Dave protested. You would have totally been within your right to punch me for that. I was being an asshole. Karkat rolled his eyes. I don't think you've figured this out yet, he said. But I'm not allowed to get mad, ever, for any reason. Me having emotions makes other people uneasy. Dave shrugged. Fuck them, he suggested. Shit, Karkat, you're like my age, 16. We're allowed to be angsty teens doing stupid shit. No, Karkat said, sighing. He looked out the window. Dave could see the trees flashing past his eyes as he said, Not me. That's hells of unfair, Dave told him. You should sue. I know a good few lawyers might be able to help you out. That made Karkat grin again, though he tried to hide it. Well, shit, Karkat said, looking at him. I don't know what you witnessed to get sentenced to a high school hell with me, but welcome to the club, I guess. Maybe things won't be as boring with you around. Hell yeah, Dave said back, raising his fist for a fist bump. Friendship secure. Karkat made no move. He stared at Dave's offered hand like he was considering breaking the fingers, but that might have just been the perpetually pissed-off look he wore. For all that he was a werewolf, Karkat didn't seem the type of guy to be prone to violence. Dave had been around enough people who were to know that look. Dave slowly put his hand down. What? You don't get many fist bumps, do you? Karkat shook his head. Normally people go out of their way to avoid being near me. He shrugged like that didn't bother him, but Dave saw right through the act. Actually, initiating contact is almost unheard of. Why? Dave asked, confused. It's not like you're contagious. You can't catch the werewolf bug from a handshake. Karkat's eyes sharpened again, but lost their edge after a few seconds. You know, he considered Dave, most people don't say that word around me. They don't ask questions. They don't bring up what I am. He stared hard at Dave, his gaze piercing. You do. Why is that? Dave swallowed, and his throat was tight. I don't know, he lied. Guess I'm just not scared like everyone else. I don't know, he lied. He lied. Sir, why are you lying? Oh my goodness. Alright. Chapter 2 time. Let me get a little swig of water. Oh, this will be nice. I can take a sip of water in between. What does that little shit know? I know why. We can't use chapter end as a finale for the stream readings anymore. We can't. We're just gonna keep going. It's chapter 2 time. Alright, chapter 2. It became a habit for Dave to seek out Carcat. It was easy to find him. Dave just looked for where everyone else wasn't. At lunch, Carcat ate alone in the front office. Dave only discovered this after getting kicked out of the lunchroom for stealing as many of the little cardboard cartons of apple juice as he could carry, and then it was onto the principal's office for a slap on the wrist. Except Carcat was there, waiting by the door, chatting easily with the uniformed police officer at his side. Dude, what? Dave had to interrupt, giggling. Are those fucking carrots? Carcat paused and looked up in surprise from his lunch. Then he scowled. What the fuck are you doing here? Language, both of you, the policeman said. He didn't really look that interested in correcting Dave's potty mouth. The radio at his hip crackled. Dave held up his pink slip like an offering of peace. They busted me for a little harmless lifting, he shrugged, and sat down in the row of seats beside Carcat, swinging his legs idly. Maybe if I'm lucky, they'll throw me in the slammer. That should get me out of pee, at least. He looked at the policeman and grinned. What do you say, officer? Take me downtown? I've been very bad today. Carcat laughed, looking delighted, which made it worth the look of exasperation on the poor police officer's face. Jackson, the officer sighed. Shouldn't you at least try to behave yourself? Dave leaned back, stretching out his arms. He felt wide awake. Not my name, dude, he told the guy in blue. It's Dave. Just Dave. Carcat's head whipped around in shock. Your fake name is Jackson? He asked, a wicked grin spreading across his lips. It looked like he'd been given an unexpected gift. Jackson? Seriously? No, dude, don't call me that shit-ass name, Dave said, mock-offended. It's just Dave. Fake name? The officer echoed, growing suspicious as he glared at Dave. Have you been telling people your real name? Only the first part, Dave defended himself. His fingers drummed out a beat on the rail of the chair. I told you guys not to call me Jackson. Changing my last name was bad enough, but fucking Jackson? That's where I draw the line. The officer just stared between him and Carcat like he was trying to put the pieces together. What have you told Carcat? Only that I'm with the system and that my name's Dave, Dave said, sparking with challenge. He wasn't sure how he felt about police officers, even now after they'd helped him get out of this Texas hellhole. The feeling of unease that need to challenge them was probably just his disrespect of any and all authority figures peering through. Are you fucking out of your mind? The man asked him, his eyes wide, and Dave laughed. Language, he said, grinning. Score 1 for Dave. Police, 0. The victory was strong enough to not feel hollow. This is school, remember? Dave, the officer tried, his voice gentle. You've got to lay low and stick with the program. I know you never wanted this, but we are trying to help you stay alive. Dave sank down into his seat, the picture of ease, unbothered by everything. I won't go by Jackson, he vowed, his voice light and idle. My name is Dave. The man sighed again and turned away, frustrated. Carcat was looking at him with interest. So you are with Whitsec, he claimed, whispering. And you're in the front office eating carrot sticks, Dave said, naming what else was fucking obvious here. He tapped his fingers against the arm of the chair he was in, full of reckless energy. Do you always eat here? Yeah, Carcat nodded. Outside of the classroom, I'm not allowed in crowded places. That was kind of tragic, actually. Dave decided not to dwell on it. Other people's trauma wasn't his problem. He already had enough shit on his plate to deal with. That's not a bad deal, Dave pointed out. The cafeteria sucks ass, and I bet that rule gets you out of PE, doesn't it? Carcat nodded, looking sullen. Hey, Dave said gently, leaning closer. Don't worry about it. Personally, I fucking hate crowds. Other people near me makes my skin want to crawl. I'd much rather get to hang out up here with the cool guys in the office. Carcat still didn't look convinced, but the policeman offered him a deal. I'll let you stay up here at lunch if you promise to cut back on the intentional troublemaking. A deal, Dave said at once, shaking the man's hand. Forcing a compromise in his favor made him feel bad about being so manipulative, but he couldn't argue with the results. He had learned how to control people from the best, after all. Carcat just rolled his eyes as the principal finally called Dave into the side office. Jackson Lalonde. Dave didn't hesitate, leaning back in his chair. Call me Jackson. One more time, see what happens, Dave yelled back, not moving from his seat. You're fucking insane, Karkat told him, but he was grinning. Dave couldn't help but smile back as the principal called for him again, this time his voice alight with tired resignation. Dave, just get in here. Dave waved at both Karkat and the policeman as he sauntered into the office, choking back a smile the entire time. Now that they were hanging out every day, it was kind of obvious when Karkat stopped showing up for school. It was also kind of obvious as to why that was. This month, the full moon fell on a Monday, and on Wednesday, Karkat was back in the classroom like nothing had ever happened. Dave was burning with curiosity, but said nothing as Karkat took his seat beside him in history class. All in all, Karkat looked just about perfect. The only thing off were the shadows caught under his red eyes like he hadn't slept in days. Concerned, Dave leaned closer as the teacher began talking. You okay? Karkat stared at him blankly. Dave could physically hear the clock ticking on the wall as the seconds passed. Karkat looked tired. Don't ask stupid questions, he said at last. I'm not in the mood to be bothered by you. Non-pulsed, Dave pressed forward. It was an honest question. You look like shit. Karkat's eyes flashed a brighter red, but immediately cooled off again. I do look like shit, don't I? He asked, one wiry eyebrow raised. Yeah, Dave nodded. Sorry about that, but seriously, you okay? Karkat shrugged. Same old shit, he said, unwilling to elaborate. I'll fucking live. Dave wasn't sure how Karkat managed to stay awake until the bell rang, but he did it and silently turned in all of his completed work to the teacher. Dave turned in his schoolwork as well, not nearly as finished as Karkat was, but at least this time the packet wasn't blank. Karkat noticed. He always noticed things. You didn't finish your work? I did most of it, Dave said lightly, shrugging. Figure that was good enough. Karkat bit his lower lip, worrying at it with his teeth. Why? He asked curiously. Dave shrugged again. The way I see it, he said, the less effort I put into school, the better. I'll stick with the absolute bare minimum all semester, blow the final exams out the fucking water with my genius mind, and slide by with a B in all the classes while doing absolutely fucking nothing at all year. It's a win-win situation. Karkat's eyes were on him again. Okay, I'll bite, he said. Even if you can somehow pull 100% final exam grade out of your ass, which I'm not certain I believe, why not just put a little more effort and get an A if school is so easy for you? Why bother with an A? Dave asked logically. I have zero drive to strive for good grades beyond what little degree of fucks I give myself. The pressures of modern society can't fucking touch me, and excuse you, I am a certified genius. My IQ is off the charts when I can actually fucking focus on anything for longer than a 3-second span of time. Karkat looked interested, his gaze focused in on where Dave was rhythmically drumming his fingers on the desktop. His leg was bouncing up and down, jittery. You know, Karkat said gently, they do make meds for that focus thing. I know, Dave answered, winking even though with his shades, Karkat couldn't see the gesture. I'm on meds for it, ADHD and shit like that. You should see me when I'm off them. I bet I'm really balls to the walls then. You talk fast, Karkat pointed out. Do you ever sit still? Not really, Dave answered honestly. And about the grades thing, I bet you have all A's, don't you? Even with all the classwork you missed during full moons. He was slightly teasing, and he wanted Karkat to know it. Hey, I work fucking hard for my grades, Karkat defended himself. Why don't you? Why do you? Dave asked, turning the question around on him. Karkat considered his answer. Mostly to make my dad proud, he admitted. Prove I'm not completely worthless, I guess. To keep me from dying of boredom, because without the excuse of school, I'd be locked in my house all goddamn day, slowly going crazy. He locked eyes with Dave. Your turn. Dave shrugged. I don't have anyone to impress, he explained. I'm the only one I've got to be proud of, and the world decided long ago that I was a useless piece of shit, and I just never saw the point in arguing with fate. Genius braid aside, I've never been good at school, never liked it beyond the escape it offered, and anyway, I'm mostly self-taught. I'll slack off, get my solid B-, and get the hell out of here as soon as fucking possible. The bell rang just then, and Dave jumped out of his chair, eager to get going. Karkat was still staring at him, his mouth agape. What? Dave asked, offering him a hand. Need a lift? There's a lot to unpack in what just came out of your mouth, Karkat told him seriously. Dave shook his offered hand again. Later, he waved away Karkat's concerns. It's after school hours now, and Dave's Blaine issues show only airs from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Carcat huffed and stared at his hand again, like before, but this time he reached out to accept it, and Dave easily pulled him upright. When standing, Carcat was a good 3 inches shorter than him, and Dave couldn't stop himself from chuckling as Carcat shook off his hand. "What?" Carcat snapped, looking embarrassed. "You're, like, so short. What are you, 5'4"? "And you're such an asshole," Carcat parroted back at him, rolling his eyes. "I'm 5'6", actually, so go fuck yourself. Not all of us get to be giants." "You probably haven't hit your growth spurt yet," Dave confided in him as they walked out the classroom. "I was super tiny until a few years back. There's still hope for you." "Thanks," Carcat said, all sarcasm as he tried to flatten down his wild hair. It was windy outside today, as soon as they stepped out in front of the doors, Carcat's hair was hopelessly tousled. Dave followed behind him back to the bus. "Why do you take the bus?" he asked curiously. "I know it takes you directly to the school board office, so what's up with that?" "Are we playing 20 questions now?" Carcat asked, somewhat irritated. "Sure," Dave said, surprising him. "I haven't seen you since Friday, remember? I miss talking to you, so ask away. I don't mind." They sat across from each other wordlessly. Carcat looked pained. "Why do you always say the important things between two halves of bullshit, and then end it with a question that derails attention from the actual honest-to-God topic you're trying your best to avoid?" Dave blinked at the verbal hit. "Is this because I said I missed you?" "Maybe," Carcat said, hostile. "Now answer the question." Dave let his shoulders lift, then fall flat. Shrug. "It's a deflection, I guess," he speculated, fixing Carcat in place with a hard look. "I don't like people knowing me." "Odd thing to say, considering the fact that you haven't shut up since I met you," Carcat said back. "Name 3 facts about me that aren't my real first name, or the fact that I'm with the system," Dave said immediately, only partially playing, "because those don't count. I already told you those." He sat there, smug, because Dave might have a habit of running his mouth, but he'd been extremely careful with what shit came out of it. He did actually take the in-hiding thing seriously. He knew what was at stake if he fucked up. Which was why he was blown away when Carcat immediately counted the facts off his fingers like he didn't have to fucking think about it. 1, Carcat said. "You're from the South. You might be very good at hiding it, but I can still make out that southern accent in your voice. Plus you hold doors open for people, and that's a dead giveaway. 2, Carcat continued, relentless. "You get in trouble because you don't know what else to do with yourself besides attract punishment, and think you've got to cultivate some ironic cool guy attitude to stay detached because you don't want to put down roots here, and think because you deserve to stay lonely and unloved that the best way to drive other people away is by becoming a delinquent. But the joke is on you, because all of your troublemaking only affects yourself, because I think that deep down you're actually a good fucking person, and this is all an act because you go out of your way to avoid hurting others with your rule breaking and aren't quick to anger, even if the scars on your hands say that you've been fighting. 3, Carcat said, his gaze hard. His voice shook. "You only set out to make friends with me because you thought that I was the most dangerous thing to associate with due to your chronic recklessness and disregard for your own personal safety, as seen with your flippancy of disobeying the system rules put in place to keep you safe because you're looking to get hurt. You carry this blame with you that I don't fucking understand, and the only person to take it out on is yourself, so you do stupid, reckless things, hoping that they'll turn around and bite you in the ass because you think you deserve it. There. Did I leave anything out?" Dave swallowed thickly. His throat hurt. "You forgot the part where I'm fluent in Spanish." "Fuck you," Carcat spat at him, his shoulders shaking with anger. "I refuse to be your own personal self-inflicted torment, so go find someone else to kill yourself on." With that, he stood up. The bus rolled at a halt outside the school board building, and Carcat marched off the school bus. He didn't look back. Dave watched him go, feeling that lonely hole in his heart open up again. His pulse was pounding as he felt cold as ice as the bus pulled away. Shaken to his core with the knowledge that Carcat had seen everything so clearly, had pierced right to the core of Dave's bullshit bravado so easily, but still had miraculously come to the exact wrong conclusion. Oh, the call out. Thank you, Tomothy, for the stretch. My goodness, if someone did that to me, I'd never show my face again. Oh my god, this line, "I refuse to be your own personal self-inflicted torments to go find someone else to kill yourself on." Oh, if someone said that to me, god damn. Fuck, man. Oh my god. I would cry on the floor for real. My goodness. Hold on, I'm gonna go turn my AC on because it's fucking warm in here. Alright, we're back to it. Chapter 3, baby. I know Dave just got here, but goddamn, he has to move away now. Yeah, you can't. Once that happens, you're done. You're fucking done. Alright, Chapter 3. Karkat was in school the next day. There was probably some rule against him skipping class, so Dave predictably found him in the front office at lunchtime. This time, he was eating a salad out of a Tupperware container with a plastic fork. Part of Dave was filled with relief at the sight as some knot inside his chest loosened. "You Karkat," he said, sliding into the seat next to him like yesterday had never happened. He checked out the homemade salad. "You vegetarian?" he asked curiously. "I've never seen you eat anything but vegetables." "Fuck off," Karkat said, pissed, angling his shoulders away. "There's chicken in here, fuckwad, so leave me the hell alone." "Eating healthy, I see," Dave continued, with his thoughts like Karkat hadn't spoke. "Smart choice." This time, Dave made sure to actually read the officer's badge when he spoke up. Damn, Officer Johnson. Maybe Dave should have held off on the anti-Jackson tirade. Johnson was half a step away from Jackson. Fuck. "Dave," the police officer's voice was a warning. "Can't you make him leave?" Karkat asked, looking at Johnson, plainly irritated. "He's an asshole, and I don't want to deal with any more of his bullshit." Dave bit down on his tongue as the policeman stared at him. "Actually, I don't think I will," Johnson decided. "If I make him leave now, he'll just go find some way to get into trouble, and then I'll be the one dealing with his bullshit. It's best to just keep this one where I can keep my eyes on him." "Oh, come on," Dave protested, indignant. "You say that like I kick puppies in my free time." You managed to break one of the goddamn windows, you managed to break the only goddamn window in this entire building that wasn't bulletproof just this morning," Johnson reminded him. "So if I were you, I'd just sit there and eat my lunch in silence." Dave dramatically hung his head. "That wasn't my fault," he said. "I didn't know it wasn't bulletproof and couldn't take a hit. I didn't even mean to slam the door that hard." "Wait," Karkat said, straightening up. His tone was shaky, and Dave could see where his fingers gripped the knee of his jeans. His knuckles were white. "There was a non-bulletproof window on a door?" "Easy, Karkat," Johnson said, measuring out the distance with his hands. "It was only a few inches across and less than a foot tall. It was never judged to be a security risk." Karkat's eyes narrowed. "I still don't like the idea of that," he said. He sat up straighter, his eyes nearly glowing. "Could it be replaced with safer glass?" "Sure," Johnson shrugged, "but it'll be more expensive." "If I'm me, I don't pay for this shit," Karkat said, shrugging. Dave watched the interaction closely. He couldn't help but open his mouth. "Do you do that often?" he asked Karkat. "Recommend upgrades and procedures like that?" Karkat blinked at him, clearly uncomfortable. "Yeah," he said, his voice clipped and short. "Most of this was his idea," Johnson said proudly. "No one knows him better than himself, so who else would we ask to help us werewolf-proof the school?" "You're shitting me," Dave grinned, delighted. "Karkat? Really? You're the one that made the school into a fucking fortress?" Karkat sighed, resigned. "So what if I helped? No one else there knows fuck all about what a turned wolf is capable of, and I had to make sure the school was as safe as possible." "That's fucking awesome," Dave said, overjoyed. "Like, total high school aesthetic aside, this place is legit. Trust me, I've been looking for camera blind spots and ways in and out ever since I got here, and I've found jack shit. I've seen bank vault blueprints sloppier than this building. It's like a fucking Fort Knox up in this bitch." "Bank blueprints?" Johnson said, zeroing in on that sentence. "What do you know about those?" Abruptly, Dave shut up, his hands clenched into his fists as his heart pounded. He said too much. "Joe told me," he offered. Karkat was staring at him like he was trying to force the pieces to fit, but couldn't quite get the edges to line up. It made Dave feel nervous and fidgety. "Who's Joe?" Johnson asked, all fake casual, like he wasn't going to radio this shit to Dave's agent as soon as he was out of earshot. "Joe Mama," Dave said, forcefully pulling his bravado back over himself as he smirked at the disappointed police officer. "Still not being helpful, I see," Johnson huffed. "You know, Dave, you could make this a lot easier on yourself if you just opened up and are actually honest with us. At the very least, you could take this seriously."
Dave could not put into words how unprepared he was to do exactly that ever for any reason, so he just shrugged again, uncharacteristically silent as his leg bounced. Karkat watched him with cold eyes. Excuse me. Back in boring history again, this time talking about globalism or some bullshit like the root of the world's problem can be traced back to the 15 different old white men with megacorporations. Dave wasn't listening. He was too busy passing notes to Karkat, which was a risky business considering how close to the teacher they sat. Not that Dave gave a shit. He had already detention for the month. Dave flicked the piece of paper at the guy, waiting. Karkat was trying very hard to ignore him, but eventually curiosity won, and he unfolded the note that Dave had flicked onto his desk. He scanned the sentence that Dave had left him, and scowled, crumpling the paper. Dave tried again, writing more this time. Karkat didn't even read this note. He just ripped it in half without hesitation. Dave put a hand to his heart, acting wounded. Karkat didn't look swayed, and Dave gave up on passing notes until the bell rang. Karkat immediately made to leave, heading for the door. Wait, Dave said. His hand darted out and grabbed Karkat's sleeve. Karkat froze, bristling at the touch. Let me go, he said, every word separate and burning with anger. Meet me on the bus, Dave asked him, releasing his sleeve. Karkat glared at him balefully. He held his bag close to his chest like he couldn't wait to leave. Why should I? Because those 3 things you said yesterday, Dave prompted him. You were wrong about the last one. Karkat squinted with suspicion, but Dave could tell he was intrigued. Fine, he huffed, but this is your last chance, Lalonde. Dave's hopeful expression faltered at the false name, like just hearing it said aloud hurt him. He covered it up well enough, though, and stood up, stretched and eagerly trotted to the bus at Karkat's side. The crowd of students parted to make way for them like Moses in the Red Sea. Some of the students were giving Dave odd looks, like they couldn't believe they were seeing as Dave walked at Karkat's side. It clearly made Karkat uncomfortable. He marched like he was expecting a fight, stubborn shoulders set in a line, his backpack worn like a shield. On the bus, Dave sat across from him again, mirroring his posture. So, Karkat said, crossing his arms, one chance. I swear to God if you waste it, I'm never talking to you again. Okay, Dave agreed, accepting the terms with a hard nod. He mulled the words around his mouth before speaking them, uncharacteristically slow and methodical, making sure he got the words right. You were right about the first 2. I am from the South. Can't say where, but I'm guilty of being Southern born and raised, and all of this Midwestern shit confuses me. How can there be this much fucking corn? He pointed out the window, then at the cornfield they were driving past. Like, what the fuck is that? The honesty didn't shock Karkat. He didn't laugh at Dave's attempt at humor. How much had he managed to guess already? I'd figured out that part, Karkat pointed out. And this is an agricultural state. Of fucking course there's corn. I know, Dave said, leaning closer. He put up his hands. I'm just covering bases, dude. Next, he said. You fucking nailed me on the delinquent thing, I'll admit. You got me. I'm busted. You just one-hit killed my pretentious cool guy act. But, he warned, knowing what's up and stopping the behavior are 2 very different things, so I expect that I'll stay my same old rule-breaking self. And 3, and this is the interesting part, because you both got it dead right and even deader wrong. It's almost a paradox, really. Statistically impossible at the very least. Karkat's eyes were narrowed, the red of them flickering as Dave stared at him and threw caution to the wind. You were right, he said. I did target you specifically to make friends, but not for the reason you think. Then why? Karkat asked. I knew who you were before we met, Dave admitted quickly, rushing to get the words out. It's impossible not to. Yours is not a secret well kept, and I couldn't help but look at you and see a guy that's been through the shit, that had all this guilt on his conscience about the past. So let me go ahead and make my own guesses now, Dave said, holding up 3 fingers. 1, he said. You have had years at this school to reach out and make friends, but you haven't because you don't feel like you're worth it. You feel like the risk is too much, so you purposefully isolate yourself. 2, Dave continued. You fall into a rut of school, home, and sleep, and then more school, forever on repeat without any hope for anything else, because you feel like if anything happens to shake that up, something bad will happen because you don't trust fate to be kind to you anymore, and it will be all your fault, so you resist change and fight to keep things in this safe little slice of normal that you've managed to create here, and you resent me for barging in and trying to change that. And 3, Dave said, as Karkat's eyes bugged out with rage, his hands and fists at his side at hearing Dave call him out like this. You'll forgive me for saying the first 2. Why, cocky bastard? Karkat spat at him, his lips twisted up in a way that almost bared teeth at him. Because this is the real answer, Dave said, swallowing. I looked at you and thought, there's a guy who fucking gets it. You told me that I am carrying this guilt around with me, and that's exactly right. And recognizes because you carry that same fucking guilt. Karkat's eyes were flint. Dave continued, his voice low, nearly a whisper. He was getting carried away, desperate. What was I supposed to do? Hang out with all these normal people who've never been through this shit before, who don't know what it's like to have a fucking body count? Karkat froze, and Dave took a deep breath, steadying himself. I looked at you, and thought that maybe you'd understand what kind of burden that was like, Dave said, breathing hard. That's why I sought you out. Not out of some masochistic, self-destructive instinct, but because you were my only hope of finding someone who might be able to understand. Karkat was furious, but he'd gone still at Dave's words, quickly reevaluating everything he'd ever thought about Dave. And then, carefully and slowly, he calmed down. His hands loosened at his side, and his eyes lost that frightful, pissed-off glow. He considered Dave with new eyes, and Dave stared back, ready to be judged. The moment stretched between them as the bus pulled to a stop outside the school board office. Karkat broke eye contact to look at the door. Fuck it, he said, sighing. Come on, follow me, we need to talk. Dave eagerly jumped to follow him. He could feel everyone else staring at them as they exited the bus, but that didn't bother Dave in any way. He'd already made his choice. This isn't your stop, kid. The driver tried to stop him for following after Karkat. It's fine, Dave said over his shoulder, walking past the man. The doors closed behind him as he stepped off the bus, knowing that his agents would be pissed about him deviating from his route like this. Where you go after school? Karkat asked curiously, his feet crunching on the gravel pathway. Dave shrugged. Safe house, he said, where I get left alone till I can take the bus the next morning. It's not much, but at least they remember to feed me and shit. He kept his voice light, but Karkat still wasn't pleased. He looked even more pissed than before, but this time it wasn't directed at him. How much trouble would this get you into? Probably a lot, Dave shrugged again. They know where I am, though, so it'll be fine. Do you need to call them or something? Karkat offered, yanking the door to the building open, only to drop into a chair that was right by the door. The blessedly cool air conditioning washed over Dave as he flopped into the adjacent seat and pulled up the leg on his jeans, revealing a blocky black ankle tracker strapped to him. They'll find me, Dave winked. Karkat stared at him, his mouth agape. Shit, he said. They don't even put those tracker things on me. I guess I'm a special case, Dave said, shrugging nonchalantly. Now that he was sitting, his leg immediately started to bounce. Flight risk, I guess. I might have said some shit I shouldn't have in the beginning, that they took way too seriously. The small waiting area was empty, and more bulletproof glass starched across the window of the receptionist's desk. The window was empty, though, and the clock on the wall ticked above a fake tree in the corner. What do you do here? Dave asked curiously. It was no most normal place he'd seen Karkat in so far, and that was after noticing the automatic locks on all the doors. I'll wait for my dad to get off work, Karkat said. Do some homework, listen to music. Dave perked up at that. What kind of music? He asked, interested. What bands, genre, songs do you like? Karkat looked embarrassed. His ears were turning red. He fumbled, mumbling. Just whatever shit comes on the radio, I guess. Oh, no, Dave said, shaking his head. It had to have been something good, based on the reaction. Taylor Swift, maybe? Nickelback? Had to know. What's your playlist like? You can't hide from me. I live, eat, and sweat music. Or, Dave paused, trailing off, the hole in his chest drawing tight again at the memory. At least I used to. Not much anymore. Why's that? Karkat asked to change the subject. Dave opened his backpack, pulled put his homework and crumpled it into a paper ball. He could spot the trash can through the small gap in the glass behind the receptionist's window, and with perfect aim, Dave sank the shot through the 6-inch gap across the room. The paper ball sank out of sight without even touching the rim of the can. He shrugged. I guess I just left music behind, he said. He missed his turntables. He missed mixing beats, but he had to abandon all of his equipment when they left town. Dave wasn't sure how he felt about that. It wasn't like he could make music here, and suddenly his fingers were twitching, itchy, feeling muscle memory for soundboards that weren't there. Carcat whistled at the shot, eyebrows raised. You should be in sports with him like that, he said. Nah, Dave said, not interested in the idea. My godlike reflexes aside, laying low does not equal becoming a sports star, sadly. He gave Carcat a nudge with his elbow. You should try out, or you should maybe try out for sports, though. I bet you'd like it. Carcat was already shaking his head. I'd hurt someone, and that would be cheating, he said. I'm stronger and faster than everyone else. It wouldn't be fair, and there's too much risk for injury. I'm thinking like golf, not football, Dave clarified. Your speed and strength count for shit at that game. It's all technique. Plus, you could totally pull off one of those polo sweater vest things that the golfers wear. Dave had to reel in his mind as his imagination conjured up an image of Carcat dressed in one of those tight-fitting shirts. Dave blinked, forcing himself to focus. Luckily, Carcat hadn't noticed Dave's lack of attention. I've always sucked at sports, Carcat confided, dropping his voice to a whisper as he looked around to make sure no one else was there. Here's a secret for you. Lycanthropy did not grant me hand-eye coordination or good balance, and just last month I tripped on the stairs and broke my nose. Dave laughed louder than he should have at that. It was just so unexpected. Shit, dude, really? Really, Carcat said, grinning. My nose healed within the hour, but it still freaked my dad out. His head turned then, hearing what Dave's ears couldn't make out as the missing receptionist popped into view, squinting at Dave through horn-rimmed glasses. Carcat? She asked, looking down her thin nose at them. Who's this with you? I thought I heard laughter. Carcat sighed. He's a friend from school. We were just talking. Taken back, the lady stared at him with shock. Dave gave a small wave. Sup? She blinked furiously, nodded, and then vanished back out of sight. Brace yourself, he said, not looking at him. Here comes my dad. Dave wasn't that concerned. He'd been dealing with disappointing adults all his life. Adding a new one to the ever-growing list of ignored and supposed authority figures didn't concern him. The door to the office flew open halfway, then slowed down for the rest of its open swing like someone was trying not to seem as rushed as they really were. Carcat slouched lower in his chair, ducking his head. His ears were scarlet with embarrassment. An unfamiliar man entered the room, dressed in a neat suit with a tie that Dave would have bet wasn't a clip-on. He had the same thick, dark, messy hair and olive-brown skin, but that's where the family resemblance ended. This man had imposingly broad shoulders that would have towered over most people, even if he did hold himself like he was unaware of how to use his tall stature. His eyes were slate gray, and Dave couldn't help but wonder if that shade was the same as what Carcat's eyes had once looked like before the wolf took them over and turned them the color of freshly spilled blood. Carcat, the man said sternly. Who's this? Before Carcat could answer, the man did a double take, recognition flooding his face. Jackson? Jackson Lalonde. Dave swallowed hard past the lump in his throat. Not even close, he answered, smirking. It's just Dave, but you get points for the effort. The man frowned. He clearly knew who Dave was and was not happy to find him sitting in the waiting room next to his son. Carcat made to ward off any further questions, explaining. I invited him, Dad. We were just talking. Mr. Vantis said. He didn't look angry, just faintly surprised. You two know each other? Not well, Carcat said at the same time as Dave said, yes. Carcat glared at him, seething in that fake mad way he had. Dave just grinned back, secretly loving this. Well, Dave, then. Mr. Vantis tried, his wording awkward. From what I know, aren't you not supposed to be here? Sort of, Dave answered honestly. His fingers resumed tapping at the arm of his chair. But I think everyone in this building knows my secret identity things, so why talk around the subject like it's the season finale secret of witness protection's biggest fuck-up? That was, of course, when the front door opened, and Dave's agent walked in, steaming mad and looking to kill. Of fucking course he'd heard the last part of Dave's sentence, because just fuck his life. The federal marshal's lips were in a thin, hard line that would have scared lesser people, but Dave was unaffected. Yo, slick, Dave said, antagonizing the man just a little. Gotta keep up the pretenses, yo. What took you so long? You look like shit, Slick snarled, pulling his hat down to cover the scar across his face, or one of his eyes was missing. The fuck do you think you're doing? Making friends, Dave offered, but he lost his smile. His heart was pounding. That was when Slick's eyes landed on Karkat and put two and two together. He groaned. Jesus Christ, he exclaimed, wheeling around on Dave, his voice loud. This is not what I meant when I told you to lay fucking low. Hey now, Mr. Vantis said, trying to calm down the situation. Wait a minute, I'm sure no harm was done. Even you can't argue that this isn't a secure building. Dave was perfectly safe here with us. It made Dave feel weird, this strange adult trying to protect him. Bad weird. His stomach squirmed inside, and he felt nauseous. His fingers fell still and gripped the chair arm tightly, his knuckles white. I doubt that, Slick said, careless, and Vance's eyes grew hard and cold. Karkat's dad squared his shoulders. He seemed to grow another 3 inches as he rose to his full height. Are you implying that my son isn't safe to be around? Ooh, Karkat said, grinning as he shook his head. Bad move, dude. Hearing the ice begin to creak under his feet, Slick backtracked by bullshitting, pointing at Karkat. You are not in my division, on my team, and are not my concern or problem. They don't pay me to worry about you. Slick rounded on Dave again, so mad that his accusatory finger was shaking as he leveled a digit at Dave. You, though, he said, low and angry through gritted teeth. Pain in my ass that you are. Excuse me. Pain in my ass that you are. You are my fucking problem, so go get in the damn car. Dave stared at the shorter man impassively. Slick reminded Dave of an angry pit bull with a jolly square jaw and one beady black eye, mean and battle-scarred and certainly armed. Agent Slick wasn't a man to keep waiting. Maybe I will if you ask nicely, Dave said, feeling ice-calm and volatile. He hadn't felt like this in weeks, and shit, it was easy to fall back into his old wariness, judging the distance between him and Slick and the door and seeking out advantages in the surrounding room, every part of him tense and ready for a fight. Slick couldn't see Dave's eyes through his shades, but even he knew he'd crossed a line. He rubbed at his face, his voice tired. Just go get in the car, Dave. Not everything has to be such a federal fucking issue, you know? Dave nearly kept fucking with him, just out of stubbornness, but Karkat was watching him, his expression both shocked and strangely torn. Fine, Dave relented, shrugging like it didn't matter to him either way as he stood up. The overhead lights glinted off his shades as he turned to Karkat. See you tomorrow, in school, he said, and then he tried not to slink out the door like a beaten dog. Slick was right on his heels, frustratingly close, when all Dave wanted was distance. The car was obvious, an all-black, 2-door with tinted windows. Dave slid into the passenger seat and slammed the door behind him hard enough to rattle the frame of the car. Slick paused to loosen his tie before getting behind the wheel. They said nothing as he pulled out of the school board parking lot, the back tires slinging gravel behind them. Dave stayed silent. Kid, Slick tried, sounding calmer, even more, though it was forced. I ain't used to dealing with teenagers, and I'm not your fucking babysitter. If that's the best apology you've got, you might as well shove it up your ass, Dave said back without looking at him. His eyes were fixed out the window. Kid, that's not my name, Dave said. Slick took a deep breath. Dave. Dave looked at him, still feeling hostile. For all I know, you'd been fucking killed, Slick grunted out gritty, his voice hoarse. I tend to assume the worst things when charges go missing, especially if they're you. I was fine, Dave protested. And how was I supposed to fucking know that? Slick shot back at him. Dave lifted his leg and shook the ankle monitor, like that explained everything. You found me, didn't you? With a goddamn werewolf, Slick sighed, gripping the steering wheel. Seriously, kid, do you have a fucking death wish? Werewolves are only dangerous during full moons, Dave answered automatically, defending Karkat. He watched the town fly past the tinted windows, everything twice as dark through his shades, and the illegally darkened windows. And if I had a death wish, I would have never gone to you guys in the first place. That was the one truth that shut Slick up for a few seconds, but only a few. Kid, Agent Slick said again. I've dealt with a lot of people with targets on their back before, and none of them were in quite hot water like you are. So if I were you, I'd learn how to fucking help yourself and listen to me for once. I wouldn't be in danger if you guys would do your job already and catch him, Dave said with venom in his voice. It's been months. I'm getting tired of waiting. Kid, Slick said, glancing at him. I get where you're coming from, I do, but we are doing our best. The court case... I don't care about your fucking court case, Dave nearly growled. Damn the legal system. His only concern was Bro. Kid, Slick said, growing angry again as they pulled onto the road to the safe house. Whatever, Dave sighed, feeling the anger leak out of him. It took too much effort to stay mad about the same thing that had been hanging over him for months. Now Dave just felt tired. I don't care, Slick. I don't fucking care. Fun, fun. Stab Dad. Oh, I love Stab Dad. How long's the next chapter? I might be able to do maybe 1 or 2 more. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Another full moon came and went. Dave had started to memorize the lunar cycle, so the days that Karkat missed didn't strike him with surprise. School sucked when Karkat wasn't there, but that was a thing out of Dave's control. Still, as the hours dug by and Dave listened to the lectures, he could have taught better than the teacher. He kind of longed to be locked in a panic room somewhere outside of the classroom that was currently boring him to death. Then he imagined what Karkat must have been going through and immediately felt bad for the thought. He spent the lunch break in the library tapping away at an ancient desktop since he didn't have a phone. He googled werewolves a few times before out of curiosity, but he'd stayed away from anything that had Karkat's name on it. There were cell phone videos that existed that had been posted to YouTube about the incident. Dave wanted nothing to do with those. He felt no desire to watch a bloodbath anyway, but these days finding reliable werewolf facts without Karkat's name in them was damn near impossible. It didn't help that nearly 85% of the scientifically verified information came directly from Karkat's case. Still, Dave managed to find a few good sources to feed his curiosity. He didn't learn anything new or useful. Most of these sites were dedicated to the few ways to kill werewolves, and that shit made Dave feel uneasy. Most of the lore was old. The disease was the bane of ancient times, when werewolves would go on monthly killing sprees and women got burned to the stake for suspicions of the affliction. But it had started to die out within the last 300 years, mainly because the world's wild wolf population had been eradicated out of fear of the disease. With wolves extinct and no new source of the virus to spread, lycanthropy became a centuries-long decline until it had just about faded from existence. Until 3 years ago, when it had soared back into popular media. Dave had a sour taste in his mouth as he closed the tab. His fingers were still tapping at the keys, typing nothing. Lycanthropy had been thought of as terrible a disease until one madman had weaponized it against a school. But there was the thing about madmen. They all had a purpose. Some sick, twisted manifesto. Dave was well versed with bad men and evil people, but there was something about how the events had unfolded that day that bothered him. He was no expert on the Skya High School attack, but he'd gotten the basic outline from the news when it had first happened when he was still in Texas. It was the only news thing that Bro had been interested in for weeks. He kept watching the reruns of the short clips of footage that the news had gotten a hold of before Karkat's dad had secured privacy rights over the rest of the tapes, his gaze cold, occasionally nodding with sick approval like he respected the wolf that had the balls to pull this attack off. That's what was bothering Dave, the memory of Bro's voice saying, "This is what I'm talking about, Dave. This is the upscale shit that'll make them scared. Whatever crazy bastard that this is was fucking brilliant." And then he popped another beer and drained it in one go. Dave remembered Dirk being there, silently wiping up the blood on the floor left over from Bro's latest video as he listened along with the newsreel. And then Dave shut the rest of that memory out because fuck no. His hands were shaking as he pushed away from the computer table, so he hid them in his pockets. It was warm today, and he was struck wearing long sleeves, but fuck this heat. He'd dealt with the sweltering Texas heat before for years. A little Midwest sun wasn't about to break him. His ankle monitor was chafing at his ankle, and one day he'd be able to take the damn thing off and tie it to a pigeon, just to say fuck you to Spade and the rest of the crew. Let them track down the damn bird with his tracker attached. It'd be hilarious. The thought was enough of a distraction to carry him through the rest of the school day, where he continued to slack off and do nothing but doodle scraps of rap lyrics in his notebook. Once he was back at the safe house, he ran into Slick, who scowled in his direction. "Don't you have homework you should be doing?" Fuck Dave's luck. Slick rarely occupied the safe house himself, and running into him was something Dave tried to avoid. "Did you learn how to communicate with teenagers by memorizing a few lines out of an 80s parenting magazine?" Dave answered back, irritated as he hunted through the empty cabinets for food. "Because that's what it sounds like to me." Yeah, Slick answered, biting down on a thick cigar. I got the magazine from the same place that sold you the stick up your ass. Dave grinned at that. He could appreciate a fine comeback after all. Hot damn, he quipped shamelessly. I hope I remember the name of the place. I think I need a bigger stick lodged up there. I've outgrown this one. Do you think they do exchanges? Slick put his head in his hands. Just go do your damn homework, he asked. If you're not going to be helpful, I won't give you the fucking pleasure of sitting here trading insults. You want to be helpful? Dave asked. Then give me a cell phone. Slick didn't even consider it. No. Come on, man, Dave protested. Why not? I've been a good boy. You have not, no, Slick answered, glaring at him. You've been a smug-ass little shit-stain since I met you, and you're not getting a damn phone. Why not? Dave asked, legitimately curious. Too risky, Slick told him, grunting as he unfolded the town's newspaper. You might try to contact someone from back home. Like who? Dave challenged, his finger twitchy. He snatched the lighter off the table just to give his hands something to do, and Slick glared at him again. Tell me why you want one, Slick challenged right back, taking a long pull of his cigar. Dave shrugged. To text Carcat, he said. Slick coughed around the smoke in his lungs, momentarily hacking as he got his breath back. To what? He asked weakly. Text Carcat, he said again. You know, like a normal fucking person. No, Slick said, shaking his head. No. You tell that kid too much about yourself as is. The last thing I need to deal with is you self-incriminating yourself with a paper trail of text messages. Fair point, Dave shrugged. Then get me a car. Slick spluttered again, his eyes bugging. He quickly controlled himself, staring at Dave. His eye was probing. You're a demanding little bastard for someone who's given us next to nothing to work with. Dave threw up his hands. I'm just offering solutions, he said seriously. You're worried about me leaving a paper trail, so give me a car and I can drive over there myself and tell him all my secrets in person. That way, there's no proof for you to cover up. Slick stared at him, his mouth agape. You're fucking impossible, he muttered under his breath, turning away. You know, he said louder, it would be easier for everyone involved if you learned to keep your mouth shut. Isn't the whole point of this conversation about me not keeping my mouth shut? Dave asked, turning the question around on him. He wasn't sure why he was doing this. He felt bored and closed in and felt like throwing the feds a bone, just one, just enough to keep yanking them along with his bullshit. That's the only reason you're putting up with me, right? To try to worm information out? Slick was too professional to be interested. Dave baited him further. Come on, he teased. One answer and you get me a burner phone, pre-programmed for whatever nosy eavesdropping you'd like. Text only. No calls, no data, no online capabilities. Full monitoring potential, even. That way you can keep track of everything I do. Agent Slick pursed his thin lips. 3 answers, he offered, and you swear to only use it to text this Carcat fellow. Violations of that rule will result in immediate loss of phone privileges. 3 answers? Damn, you drive a hard bargain. Dave held his hand out, the one that wasn't holding onto the white Bic lighter. Deal. Slick stared at him. It cannot be that goddamn easy, he growled. Going once, Dave warned, and Slick jumped forward to shake his hand, sealing the deal. Better think fast, Dave joked. 3 answers. What'll help you out the most? I wonder. Slick appeared to be thinking very hard. Put you on the spot, did I? Dave said, merciless. His face was emotionless. Come on, think faster. What do you want to know? How specific will these answers be? Slick questioned. I want to know if they'll be worth a phone, or if you'll just feed me more bullshit. I promise to be both clear and concise, Dave swore, the lighter spinning through his fingers. How did Strider find his victims? Slick asked. He set his own phone face up between them, the red camera light flashing as he recorded the conversation. Easy, Dave scoffed. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, any blogging site. People are careless about all their personal shit they post, and once he found someone he'd like, he'd hack them. He'd stalk them for weeks beforehand, memorize their routes, learn everything about them. He'd get in their computers, their phones, everything. He liked the feeling of a well-thought-out plan going off without a hitch. He liked being in complete control. That was part of the thrill for him, planning everything down to the last inch. Dave shut up, his hand and fist at his side. We have 2 questions left. How many victims are we looking at? Slick said, expressionless. He wanted names, dates, records, hard facts. Dave shrugged. It took him around 3 months to find someone, plan everything out, and take them. That's 4 people a year or so for my entire life as far as I know, except when he did sprees or clusters. Speedruns, he called them. He only started doing those a few years ago, and they throw off the data by a dozen or so. My closest guess, and you're looking at around 75 people. Slick let out a breath he'd been holding. The forgotten cigar was burning itself down between his fingers, shredding ash. What was your number? Dave asked silently. Around 16, 22 maybe. The Fed just stared at him wordlessly. Last question, Dave said, swallowing thickly. He felt feverishly hot as he betrayed his brother, but it wasn't like Bro wasn't going to kill him anyway, so why not go ahead and fuck him over while Dave still could? What is it that made you finally turn on him? Slick asked. If you knew for years, why'd you wait so long? Dave's heart was pounding. He blinked behind his shades. I won't answer that, he said. You promised me 3 answers, Slick reminded him, his voice hard. Keep your goddamn phone, then, Dave spit out, shaking. The lighter fell from his suddenly nerveless fingers. It clattered loudly to the floor. He gripped the tabletop to hold himself upright. His legs were shaking. He needed to get out of here. Slick seemed to understand that he'd pushed too hard and backtrack. Okay, easy there, he said gently, like Dave was an animal easily spooked. If that topic's off limits, I can ask something else. Do it, he said. His voice clipped. He didn't even try to argue. The doctor said you're pretty smart, Slick said, begrudgingly complimenting him. Genius, even. You remember any of these people's names or faces? Anything at all that might help us identify a few missing persons. Dave took a deep breath and forced himself to focus, breathing hard. The room was swimming. I remember everything. Faces are better than names. Photographic memory, they told me. Dave forced his hands to fall still. Bring me a stack of missing persons photos from Texas, and I'll see what I can do. Odds are I'll recognize a few. Maybe that'll bring closure to a few grieving families. Let them find some peace after the unending shit show that went on in that apartment. He shouldn't have said that last part out loud. He knew. It made him sound soft, like he cared. But it had just slipped out. That all? Slick asked softly, reaching for his phone. Dave nodded, his teeth chittering together. You should have asked for the passwords to all his tech, he said, expressionless. He felt hollowed out. His throat felt raw. He kept everything stored on his computer. Slick froze. Kid, he said seriously, if he actually told you the passwords for his computer, I'd advise you to tell me now. You still got that shit in lockup? Dave asked numbly. It was easy to be cruel when he felt like this. What, can't get past all the encryptions? All that data and money and fancy tech, and you can't break into one homemade PC? Dave, Slick growled, using his name, letting him know shit was serious. He never told me. Dave flinched, breaking eye contact. He never trusted me enough for that. Slick seemed to buy it. He reached out and cut off the recording, fiddling with his phone. I'll have those pictures ready for you by tomorrow afternoon, he said, businesslike. I expect a phone by then. Dave forced himself to speak. Though, honestly, the picture thing should be worth a car. Kid, Slick sighed, rubbing at the back of his neck. You just helped out our investigation more in 10 minutes than we've been able to do so on our own in the last 5 months. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about all the people you could help with what you know. I want you to do the right thing and come clean to us. No more of this evasive, back-and-forth bullshit. I want you to help us be the good guys. Dave swallowed hard. His eyes felt watery, but he was safe behind his shades. I'll do my best with the pictures, he offered, and then he fled to the room. He sought refuge in the shower. The water turned to scalding. There was a stranger in the mirror watching him, but then Dave took off his shades, and he saw the same red eyes he'd grown up staring back at him. His stark black, horribly dyed hair ghosted out what little color he had to his skin, and even though the feds had been feeding him well, the angles of his face looked sharper, nearly gaunt. Slick's words burned at him, and Dave mulled his last lines over in his head, wondering if good was something he could still be. Oh my goodness, what a chapter. Oh! I don't know if I can do one more. That might be where we'll stop for the night. How many words is the next one? We'll do one more. We'll do one more. We'll do this one and then we'll end. We'll do this one and then we'll end. We'll do 5 chapters. I'm reading the rest after stream. I can't just leave it like, man. Yeah. It's funny. I binge read this fic in like 2 days, I think. So I understand. But we'll do one more chapter. I'm waiting for a burp. There we go. Thank you. I don't know why I said thank you. Thank you, my body, for letting me burp. Alright. Side eyes DMs, I was normal. Thank you. Yeah. Alright. Where's Dirk? Where's my silly guy? I've been reading ahead. I can't be normal about this. Alright, chapter 5. Dave found the phone waiting for him in the kitchen before school. It was an old, beat-up flip phone, and he eagerly swiped it and snapped it open. There was a yellow sticky note attached to it that read, "Dave, don't make me regret this," in cramped handwriting. Dave crumpled the note idly as he clicked through the old phone. There was a number set to home, with name Spade Slick as the contact header. That was it. The rest of the phone was a blank slate. Dave couldn't help but grin as he made his way down to the bus stop, slipping the phone into his pocket. He never had a phone before, and the unfamiliar weight in his pocket was comforting. He was moving up in the world. Dave barely held it together until lunch. Karkat and Officer Johnson were chatting together as always. Karkat was eating some kind of pasta thing, and for the first time he didn't look slightly pissed off to see Dave saunter into the front office. "Hey, Dave." Karkat waved back. Excuse me. "Sup?" Dave said back, a warm feeling flooding his chest. He plopped down into the seat beside Karkat and nodded to the familiar policeman. "Don't you get time off or something to go write people traffic tickets?" Dave asked curiously. "Or is this your permanent school position?" "I'm always stationed here," Johnson answered. "I received special training for the position." "Which is?" Dave inquired. "Protector of the school," Johnson said proudly, puffing out his chest so that his badge shone. "Basically, I make sure that Karkat's alright and safe." He didn't say anything about the silver bullets Dave knew his gun was loaded with, instead bragging, "As long as I'm here, no wackos could come after him." "Is that a valid concern?" Dave asked, stressed. "Random whack jobs with anti-werewolf vendetta?" "Kind of," Karkat huffed. "It's the downside of being publicly known. A lot of crazies threaten to kill me for the greater good of humanity or some shit." "That sucks ass," Dave said, blinking, concern filling him. "Do people try to come after you a lot?" Karkat shrugged, the movement small and miserable. "A few people have mailed silver powder bombs to my house," he said. "Not that I've ever been stupid enough to own one. And once someone stuffed our mailbox full of wolfsbane. Dad found that one and was pissed, but so far no one's ever touched me." Karkat's eyes were grateful as he glanced at the police officer. "I've been lucky." All of Dave's scars ached. "I'm sorry," Dave said. "That sounds like it sucks." Karkat shrugged again. "It's okay," he said. "I'm used to people trying to kill me." Because Dave was an idiot, he said, "Me too," without thinking, and then clammed up at Karkat's shocked expression. Dave coughed, uncomfortable, and switched the subject, pulling out his new phone. "So," he said, lightly flipping it open, "what's your digits?" Karkat eyed the flip phone with distrust. "What are you, a fucking drug dealer?" he asked, joking. "Who even uses flip phones now?" "It's the only kind Slick would let me have," Dave defended himself, protective of his piece of shit phone. Right now it was the only physical thing he actually owned. Dave tapped at the keyboard, opening his contacts. "They can't be traced like most phones, and this one's been disconnected from the web. It's text and call only, safe as can be." Karkat gazed at him. His eyes were piercing at the reminder that Dave was supposed to be in hiding, that he had people after him too. Dave met his eyes behind the shades, steady. The moment burned between them. "Here," Karkat said softly, reaching for the phone. Dave let him take it and enter in his information. "I don't really use my phone much," he commented. "I only really use it for emergencies and Googling shit, apps and things like that." He handed the phone back to Dave, biting his lip. "Not sure why you want my number," he admitted. "Don't you get enough of my dreadful personality while at school?" "Nah," Dave said, smirking as he felt a thrill of glee at the sight of Karkat's number in his phone. "I actually like talking with you, you know." Karkat looked away, and Dave could see his ears turning scarlet. He didn't tease Karkat for his embarrassment. Dave was too happy for that. Johnson rolled his eyes. "Great," he said. "I give it 3 days before the pair of you get busted for texting in class." Dave looked wounded, dramatically fanning himself. 3 days, he echoed. "I'm insulted. I wouldn't give it to the end of last period." Don't make me regret giving you my number," Karkat warned. "I have a spotless behavior record at this school, and I won't let you fuck that up." "Okay," Dave said, agreeing as he opened the world's shittiest phone camera on his flip phone to toggle with the settings. Karkat looked in surprise. "Really? It was that easy?" "Sure," Dave said, showing him a real smile and not a shit-eating grin as he said gently, "I can respect boundaries, you know. I'm not a total asshole." Carquette softened, losing the hard set to his jaw. I'll try to remember that, he said, nudging Dave gently with his elbow, though you could do with dropping the asshole act every now and again. Dave felt something warm and fluttery shoot through him at the contact and gulped. I'll try to remember that, he said, and he turned the shitty phone camera on himself and snapped a pic, just to try and help capture the feeling, to bottle it up for later, to make it his, to remind himself that he was still capable of feeling like this. They are so homosexual. Dave grew more and more anxious as the hours passed and school began to draw to a close. He could only imagine the mess that would be waiting for him back at the safe house, and he put one hand in his pocket to feel the weight of his phone, telling himself he'd done the right thing. Carquette must have noticed something off with his expression in history class, but he didn't say anything until the teacher had dismissed them before the bell. You okay? He asked, looking concerned. Dave shrugged, listless. He felt like pacing the floor. I've got to do some stuff for Slick this afternoon, and I'm kind of dreading it. Like court case stuff. It was close enough to the truth for Dave to feel like he was getting away with partial honesty. Carquette paused, but he knew better than to ask the details in the middle of the classroom. Will you be all right? He asked. Dave forced a smile. I'll be okay, he said. We're just going over some shit I don't like to be reminded of. Carquette was still staring at Dave, so he elaborated a little. It gets in my head, makes me feel weird. I don't like it. Okay, Dave nodded, unsatisfied, then shyly. You text me after? Make sure you're okay? Dave perked up, the bell ringing overhead. Of course, he said, nodding. He wasn't sure why, but the idea of talking to Carquette later was instantly calming. I can text you. Sure thing. He stood up, grabbing his bag from off the floor as they headed to the bus. I'd invite you over to the board office to talk, but Carquette trailed away, taking his usual seat. Yeah, Dave responded, rubbing the back of his neck. Not today. Carquette was still looking at him like he was waiting for Dave to ramble on, but no other words followed him. You've been quiet today, Carquette mentioned. This thing must be really bothering you. Now it was Dave's turn to trail off as he ended with a lame, it's complicated. Carquette frowned, his mouth pulled tight at the edges. It's okay, Dave said as the bus pulled to the board office. We all have shit to deal with. Carquette gave him one last look before standing up. Okay then, he said. I'll see you later, Dave. Good luck. Dave nodded wordlessly as he watched his friend leave. His belly was tied in knots as the bus approached the drop-off point for the safe house, and when he got off the bus, the sound of the dry grass on the side of the road crinkling under his shoes was the loudest sound in the world. The bus pulled away in a gust of hot air and exhaust fumes. Dave could see Slick waiting on the porch, standing with one shoulder leaned against the doorframe. Dave gave a small, half-hearted wave, steeling himself as he walked to the door. For some reason, Slick was already pissed at him. What's the use of the damn phone if you're not going to stay in touch with me? Dave looked surprised. What? I've been texting you for the past hour, you deviant, Slick said, growling. Anyway, I hope you're fucking ready for this. The rest of the crew is here, so I expect you to be on your best behavior, you understand? Dave felt some of his fire come back just enough to snap. I will if they will. Slick didn't look happy, but he moved aside so Dave could slink through the door. 3 men stood around the table, dressed in all black aside from one who wore the vest of a federal marshal. One was tall, one was big, and one was so short and round that Dave couldn't help but wonder who had let this guy be a cop. Dave, Slick said, introducing the other men, meet the rest of my team. Droog, our brains. Here, the tall man with the black eyes dipped his thin face in a nod. Boxcar, the muscles, Slick said, and the big guy built like a fucking freight train nodded wordlessly. Seriously, this man probably bench pressed dumpsters in his spare time. And Deuce, the equipment guy, Slick said, waving to the tiny man in the vest. Dave didn't say anything. His mouth was dry, and he could see hundreds of laid-out photographs that covered the tabletop behind them. Slick spoke again, his voice remarkably soft. Dave, he said, just try your best. There's no pressure. I know this might be hard for you, but think of how much good it'll do. Yeah, Dave said, pushing past him to get to the table. Let's just get this over with. He approached the table with trepidation. Every picture was a headshot, a clattering mix of professional work pictures and candid moments. There were just so many of them, they all blurred together into a colorful patchwork quilt across the tabletop. He didn't even know where to start. This was an impossible task. There had to be 300 photos here. These are all from Texas? Dave asked numbly. Everywhere he looked, he saw another face staring up at him. Within 3 miles of Houston, or within 300 miles of Houston, Slick said, coughing. We thought it was a good place to start. Dave nodded, forcing his gaze to the first picture, thinking of this more as a puzzle to solve, and forcefully ignoring the fact that these people had been reported missing. He wet his dry lips. How many are there? Thousands, from just the past 5 years, Slick said, and he lit a cigar, but didn't bring it to his mouth. Dave felt sick. But I thought we could start slow. There's only a few hundred. Could he do this? Could Dave really pick out the familiar faces from this confusing menagerie? He tried to go back to the first photo, to take it in row by row, methodically one by one, but already his gaze was being dragged away, zeroing in on a picture of a woman with long red hair and freckles. He touched the picture and felt the stickiness of the glossy photo paper to his sweaty fingers. Dave turned it over just enough to see the date printed on the back, but didn't read any of it. He didn't want to know her name. This is an old picture, he said, his voice hoarse. She'd cropped her hair short just a few days before it happened. Slick took the photograph from him and turned it over, scanning the back before he handed it to Deuce, who immediately began typing on a compact and high-tech laptop. Can you verify this? He asked seriously. Got it, Deuce said, hunching over the monitor. Affirmative, boss. No pictures, but there's a Facebook post about a new hairstyle on her page dated 3 days before she was reported missing. Dave closed his eyes. He could see his pulse on the backs of his eyelids as he leaned over the table. When he opened them, he saw Slick staring at him. You okay, kid? The agent asked, his gruff smoker's voice softer than Dave had ever heard before. Dave pressed his lips together and nodded. Yeah, he forced out, breathing hard. He went back to the pictures, quickly scanning over them and immediately discarding the kids. Bro might have been an immoral sociopath, but his work was strictly 18 and above. So many missing children. Dave could feel his teeth grinding together as he stared at their faces. It didn't take him long to get another hit, recognition hitching barbs out of his frontal lobe as he found familiar features. An older businessman, weak jawline with balding sideburns. It took Dave a second to recognize him without the blood that had coated his face, but Dave was sick with certainty as he wordlessly handed the photo to Slick, not meeting his eyes. Dave went back to work. He fell into a rhythm, scanning each photograph carefully before moving to the next. Whenever he felt that jolt of recognition and saw the face of one of Bro's victims, he'd hand the photo over to Slick. When he was done with all the pictures on the table, he moved on to the ones that had been spread across the countertop, completely focused as he hunted through the sea of faces. Deuce had assembled a stack of tagged photos by the time Dave was done. Dave didn't need to ask to know the final count. The number felt branded in his mind as he watched the man slide the 22 photos into an envelope and seal it. I'm sorry, Dave said that out loud to no one in particular. The whole room was staring at him. His hands were shaking again. I didn't see all of them that he brought back, just those. You did fine, kid, Slick reassured him, working his jaw like he was trying to find the right words. Drew looked impassive. How can we be sure that Dave identified them correctly? Slick sighed. Kid, he asked and looked at Dave. You saw Deuce when you walked in, right? Yeah, Dave shrugged. So tell me his badge number, Slick asked. Dave didn't even have to think about it. 00183462878374. Deuce turned around and took his badge off, squinting at the small numbers. Say that again? Dave repeated the number slowly, and Deuce nodded at Slick. That's exactly right. See? Slick told Drew while Boxcar just stared ahead like he was looking for something to crush between his teeth. What did I say? The kid's gifted. Slick motioned to the envelope of chosen pictures. If he says Strider killed those people, I fucking believe him. Dave just swallowed thickly. But will it hold up in court? Drew gasped. He's our star and only witness, Slick argued, gruff as he took another drag of his cigar. It'll hold up. Dave didn't want to stand around and listen to the feds argue legal schematics. That wasn't his job. Can I go now? He asked, trying to keep his voice from wavering and only failing a little. Slick nodded, and before he could open his mouth to talk to Dave, he had slipped out of the room. He made his way to the small bedroom he now occupied and sank onto the unmade bed like his legs couldn't hold him up any longer. His fingers were shaking as he fished his phone out of his pocket and flipped it open. He did have a few texts from someone called SS that he ignored, hitting Karkat's name on his contact list. Yo, Karkat, it's me. What you doing? The reply was almost instant. Dave? How are you? How did that thing go? Dave bit his lip as he typed out a reply. It went, and it's over now, but I don't really know how I feel about it, except I would never like to do that ever again because I was hitting new levels of suck. Was it that bad? Yes. Do you want to talk about it? Maybe, but I'm not sure legally how much I can explain without resorting to weird metaphors and far-fetched parallels that make no fucking sense. It's like, God, I would never ask this to you if I were thinking clearly, but I'm kind of freaking the fuck out right now, so I'll go ahead and say it, but feel free to tell me to go fuck myself for being an insensitive douchebag if you don't feel like answering. Have you ever seen the footage of the Sky High attack when you first turned? Dave knew that the unexpected turn of the conversation had caught Karkat off guard, and he watched those 3 little dots pop up, then disappear, then pop up again. It took a long time for Karkat to answer him. I have. Just once. I wanted to see what it had looked like to everyone else. I wanted to know how the world had viewed me that day. Have you seen it? Dave answered him honestly. No, not beyond the hallway clips that the news showed, and I don't want to either. But watching that, knowing what you did and seeing the results of it in your face like that, how did it feel? This time, Karkat's answer was faster. Like shit. Like the worst shit you could imagine. I can imagine some pretty bad shit, and I know your shit's up the Richter scale of awful shit, but I think I just learned firsthand how that feels, and I can agree with you. It absolutely does feel like shit. There was a pause, then, Dave, what's going on with you? And don't give me the bullshit deflection or lie this time. I understand if you can't tell me or don't want to, and I'm not forcing you to spill your secrets, but I want you to know that I'm here if you ever need to talk. Dave knew he was breaking the rules that he couldn't bring himself to give a shit about as he typed out. You know how I'm in witness protection? Yeah. Well, what do you know about how WITSEC works? I know they help people protect people, or help hide and protect people who are testifying in court cases that put their lives in danger. I know that they're often witnesses to crimes or have insider information that could make the big cases and put bad guys away for life. Is that why you're with them? You mentioned a court case earlier today. Did you see something you weren't supposed to? You could say that. And you're going to testify? Dave looked away from his phone screen, staring blankly at the wall. He could hear the feds arguing from the living room, their voices echoing through the thin walls. He's just a kid, Slick was saying. He's only 16, and you know what he fucking went through. Cut him some slack. 5 months, came Droog's voice. He's been sitting on this for 5 goddamn months. If he's that fucking smart, then I know he knows the answers for everything we need, Spades. Dave answered Karkat with his heart in his throat. I'll try to, but things might not work out the way you think. I don't care. Dave, that's one of the fucking bravest things I can think of a person doing. If you're going up against some kind of villain, even as they're trying to hunt you down, fuck, that's goddamn heroic. Dave turned away from the screen. He could bear to look at those words, as he heard Slick defend him from the living room. Droog, give it a rest, will you? Slick demanded, getting angry again. His voice was getting louder. The kid's my responsibility, alright? And I fucking know pushing him for answers will get us jack shit. We've got to let him come to us on his own. Out of what? Droog sneered. The goodness of his heart. He only did this today because he gained something from it. Dave looked back at his cell phone in hand, his knuckles turning white from how tightly he was gripping it. No, I'm not being heroic. That's not right. I did something, Karkat, something that put me into this mess, and it sure as fuck wasn't heroic. I'm not sure I believe that. WITSEC wouldn't be protecting you if there wasn't a good reason for it. Why not? It's not like my life's worth anything to them without the dirt they know that I have on a certain person. Is that why someone is after you? Because you have dirt on them and they think you're going to testify against them in court? Partly, but it's more complicated than that. God, I wish it were that fucking simple. But every time I try to think about what happened, I keep coming to the exact same conclusion. Which is, Dave heard boxcars grunt something unintelligible out in a voice like boulders breaking to try and keep the pace, but Slick or breaking to try and keep the peace. But Slick spoke over him. He doesn't trust us yet. We just need to give him more time. He's a manipulative, controlling asshole who's only looking out for himself, Droog fired back. You give him way too much credit, Spades. Look at how he was raised. Do you really think that kid has a fucking conscience? Dave forced his attention back to the conversation he was having, typing out his answer he'd been dreading. I did a bad thing for selfish reasons, and now I'm paying the price. I've gotta go. I'll talk to you tomorrow, okay? Okay. Good night, Dave. I'm sorry if I asked too many questions. No, it's okay. Night, Carcat. Dave flipped the phone closed and took a deep breath as he heard the fight in the living room die down as the other feds left. Dave heard them stomping out on the porch and down the drive. He heard Slick still moving around the kitchen and smelled the heavy scent of tobacco in the air. He gave Slick a few minutes to calm down before Dave took to his feet and silently walked back into the living area. Slick's back was turned as he typed furiously onto his laptop. A cloud of smoke wreathed around his head over where he'd pulled his hat low over his brow. Dave deliberately shifted his weight so that the floorboards under him creaked, and Slick spun around, one hand instinctively going for his bare hip before he saw Dave standing there. Jesus Christ, Slick gasped as he quickly let his hand drop back to his side. Don't sneak up on me, I'm too old and trigger-happy for that. Dave just shrugged. Slick looked at him oddly. Why are you standing there like that? Like what? Dave asked, swallowing thickly. Like you have something you want to say, Slick said, taking off his hat to let it rest on the rack, or taking his hat off to let it rest on the hand. Oh my god, taking off his hat to let it hang. Oh, that's supposed to be hang. Taking off his hat to let it hang off the rack by the front door. He didn't push, didn't try to probe the information out. He just gave Dave the space to ease into it on his own. I didn't do it for a phone, Dave told him flatly, expressionless. A tremor ran through his jaw. I just thought you should know. Slick nodded slowly and cautiously, like he wasn't trying to scare Dave away. He didn't say anything else. Neither did Dave. And now that their impasse had started to fracture, Dave couldn't see the bottom of the pit he'd dug himself into. Slick nodded again, his jaw working. We need to re-dye your hair, he said at last, staring at Dave. Your roots are starting to show. Now freed, Dave nodded wordlessly and left the room with a gritty taste in his mouth. He didn't look back. Chapter ends, and that is where we will end today's stream, or at least end the fanfic reading. But we've done it. This is the first 5 chapters of The Fall of Rome. I hope we're enjoying it all so far. Someone give Dave a hug and some apple just for real. Gonna go devour the rest of the fic now. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love this fic so much. But yeah, lovely time. Yippee. These are going to be harder for me to add onto... Well, not harder. It's just going to take me a bit longer to add them onto YouTube. Because I'll have to figure out the chapters a bit more better. Because I do the little breaks in chapters. Like the timestamps. That's what it's called. But yeah. So tomorrow we'll do the next couple. I don't know how many we'll do. There's so much going on so far. There really is. I'm a very big fan of the Dave Cat dynamic in this fic. I love Dave being an asshole. I love the first couple chapters of Dave and Carcat's back and forth. It's really interesting. And I don't know, I'm a big fan. I am a big fan. So yeah, tomorrow we will keep going. We will go maybe do another 5 chapters. Who knows? I'm not gonna make any promises because the chapter lengths could be all different, but we'll do at least a couple more. And yeah. So, oh, excuse me. you guys all for hanging out tonight. We will be back tomorrow, as usual, at 9 p.m. EST, for at least for the fanfiction portion of reading. I might stream at some point tomorrow earlier, working on animation stuff. Maybe not, but Bro is/was a serial killer. There's a court case revolving that, and Dirk exists, and Dave is in WITSEC for some reason. Also, there's whatever's going on with Carcat. Yeah, there's so much little groundwork being laid down. And also there's werewolves. Yeah. So much. And the werewolves. Oh my goodness. Alright, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Hope you all have a very lovely rest of your night/day/ afternoon/ morning, whatever time zone you're in. And yeah. I will talk to you all then. Good night, good night. Bye. Love you guys.